Simon Mayo.
Oh, yeah.
Drive time's on and we want go home.
From the very top, then.
It's good to be wise when you're young, 'cause you can only be young, but for once, enjoy yourself, have lots of fun, serve God and live, my friends, and it will never done.
Come on, you know how this goes.
Enjoy yourself.
One more time.
It's later than you think. Enjoy yourself.
We have some snacks for the journey.
While you're still in the
A degree of lubrication
years go by.
for the sore throat, and we're ready to go.
Quickly as you wink. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. It's later than you think.
All right, well, here we go.
This is the BBC.
Simon Mayo, 88 to 91 FM, BBC Radio 2.
Hello and welcome. This is another Confessions podcast from your friends at Radio 2, where we make jingles like this.
BBC Radio 2.
I'm going to cheer you up right now. This is fun. Clap along. It's the Radetzky March. Come on. Yes. There you go. Told you, you feel better. So here we go. We've got some fine stories from this week. Picking up the pieces, Bump and Grind, Roadie to Nowhere, and the fantastically named There's a Guy Works Down the Chip Shop, Swears He's Useless. Here it all comes. Dear Father Simon and the Forgiving Collective, and also Matthew.
Oh.
You get a special name check in there.
Well, implying that I'm not one of the forgiving.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
just having a look at this. I think there'll be some who will take quite a hard line on this, but
Is
I'm
it
not
on class lines? Do
No,
hope so.
no, let's just see what happens. My confession goes back to the hallowed and different times of the 1970s, when I was one amongst many shorts-clad, snotty schoolboys in a West London institution. Our role was to devise, when they probably use terms like rozzers all the time. Our role was to devise amusing japes and clever schemes to keep our begowned teachers perpetually on the back foot. We were certainly obnoxious, but in that charming, smart aleck way that is so endearing. So this is kind of like Bash Street Kids again, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
what this is. The incident, in fact, this is the Bash Street Kids. That's what this confession is. The incident I speak of was in a chemistry lesson. Always good fun. We had just, dear BBC, we had just had a new teacher who commanded some respect as he was much older than us, about 23, and sported a dashing goatee beard that was cool. I'm going to call him Mr. C. He was relaxed and, like some of us, had a habit of tipping his chair and lounging about casually. Quite a contrast to the older sirs who stormed around looking like Severus Snape. Chemistry was ideal for japes, such as asking a gullible former pupil the time when he had a test tube full of gunk in his watch hand. No one will fall for that. Or carrying out mysterious experiments at the back of the class undetected. My attitude to school in general, and to chemistry experiments in particular, was cavalier. Instructions were more like guidelines. Use precisely 1 centilitre became throw in a healthy splash. Use precisely 2 centilitres became a throw in a healthy splash and a bit more plus a little extra for luck. I don't think we said centilitres in the 1970s particularly, but anyway. A Bodger's charter I still swear by when doing DIY, says Di. On the day of my shame, we were testing flammable liquid hydrogen. Can I just say at this point, actually, I probably should have said at the beginning, this is something from a different era.
Okay.
This is not to be condoned, and none of the practices that you hear about in here should be in any way replicated at home.
We should have done this at the top.
Should have done that at the beginning, sorry.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of confusion.
Okay.
Anyway, we were testing flammable liquid hydrocarbons using a lit splint for types of smoke and flame. Just that very experiment sounds as though it's not allowed anymore. I was on the front timber bench, punctuated, I don't like the way he's used the word timber, punctuated by 2 sinks, and with my mate, Paul. we put on our customary over-generous amounts of these hydrocarbons, such as Bilzene and benzene. Sound like two characters from a cartoon. But anyway, I never took chemistry much further, says Di. And we put them in a petri dish and then, using a lit splint, set fire to the said compound and dutifully wrote down a description of the smoke and flame, such as, it was smoky and a little bit flamey. The small inferno was put out and the residue was then tipped down the sink, followed by some water from the running tap. Again, you don't try this. If you've got some benzene knocking around,
Don't put it down the
leave
sink.
it alone. After a few tests, I had an unforeseen problem when one splint decided not to go out by the conventional shaking and blowing. Then, Simon, my brain took a departure I will never forget. In an instant, I decided to douse the annoying lit splint in water and dropped it in the sink. Sad to relate, our overgenerous hydrocarbon residue held sway over the water, and with a withering whoomph, the sink contents caught fire, and a flame shot up 4 foot towards the ceiling. We stepped back hurriedly, shocked, but admittedly a little pleased with this particular impact. Then a moment later, my fixed grin faded with dismay as whoomph. The other front sink also burst into flames. Things were getting rather hairy. A second later, panic set in amongst me and my classmates as there was a loud rumble and the oxygen in the waste pipes expanded, culminating in an almighty Dr. Mosh-style boom.
Really?
Yes. And all the floorboards around the room in the air lifted about 2 feet, including those under Mr. C's tilted chair, which then catapulted him into the air. Time stood still as Mr. C went up and came down, accompanied by my inner no, and he landed in a heap. Anyway, to be fair, Mr. C retained his cool. He got up and reacted swiftly. As we discussed making a bonfire, he set off the fire extinguisher and doused the fires. However, stopping an extinguisher is another matter, and soon each sink had a 4-foot-high pile of foam on top of them, decorating our front bench. The lab was trashed and my reputation was made. I was never brought to book for my moment of madness. This was probably due to the singular lack of health and safety rules existent at the time. You can't judge us by today's standards. You want to bet? You just wait. I don't seek forgiveness from Mr. C for disrupting his lesson and destroying his classroom, or my classmates for setting back their moribund quests for O-level chem. But when I visited the school some 30 years later at an anniversary celebration, the floorboards were still loose. I do seek forgiveness from the generations of students who carried dangerous chemicals around the lab, made unfit by my rash intervention. I submit my tale to your wise consideration. Well, let's see whether we can judge the 70s by today's standards. It's Di's tale, and he thought, you see, he was following the rules. He had a lit splint, and he thought, obviously, the thing to do, drop it in the sink. It's just that there was a little bit too much of the flammable material there, and all the sinks, and then the floorboards. So the floorboards was the interesting bit. Bobby, what did you make of that?
Well, the thing is, it sounds like also like a cookery lesson of the 70s, isn't it? It could be the same, really. You know, you've got too much of one thing and it involves heat and stuff like that. But the thing is, what I loved about this is the teacher. How cool was the teacher?
Mr. C?
Yeah, because Mr. C knew they would take it too far. The thing is about children, if you say, please don't do this, or only a tiny bit, they're always going to push the boundaries because you haven't explained there's going to be a massive explosion if you do that. So they're just testing the water. I think, given the fact that you probably provided one of the best chemistry lessons by accident you could possibly have, you are forgiven.
I'm surprised. It's Bobby taking a lenient line on this. I think Matt is...
Yes. Well, I took against the chemistry teacher from the start. I cannot be doing with cool teachers. Hey, kids, I'm not like the rest of those old squares. I've been listening to Dizzy Rascal. Look at me. I'm just like you. I'm in my early 20s. I'm not even sitting in this chair. I'm tipping back. Oh, yes, I'm very much breaking up the system. No, you're not. You're the teacher, so you're going to have to start acting like the teacher. No one's buying you being Mr. Cool, Mr. C. So, for that reason, I am going to forgive.
Dear Father Simon, I write to you with no hope of forgiveness. None is possible, but more a tale of ultimate redemption. My story goes back to the early 1980s when I worked for a well-known major building contractor. The industry then was a far different place than it is today, and the horseplay or crack was legend. I worked in the procurement department with a team of 4, and I can say quite honestly it was the best time of my working life, with countless jokes, tricks and adventures. Matt would love spending time with you. He loves pranksters.
I love them.
Really?
Enough.
Really? We're going to have to do some more jokes today?
Oh, good.
Regularly, we took a trainee into our team for 6 months' experience in buying. They were usually pretty lippy, lively lads with an irrepressible confidence in their own ability and convinced that they were next year's MD. Oh, yeah. Well, you see, Simon, the construction industry is a pretty down-to-earth profession. We're always worried that these impressionable youths would suffer greatly at the hands of the site delivery team, so we saw it as our pastoral duty to prepare them for the future. We did this by demonstrating with practical examples what to look out for. This included normal things like ambushing them on the way to the post office, which ran through the churchyard, and jumping out from behind gravestones with a gusty boo. In fairness, we'd only do this when it was dark, so
That's okay then.
fair enough.
That's fine.
There was also one memorable occasion when a cat lover called Chris was told about my own cat going in for a very delicate operation. All I'll say about this prank is that the day after the op, 2 fleshless cherries wrapped in some black cotton and placed in a water-filled plastic container on Chris's desk was all it took to send him running to the bathroom. And I might have popped them in my mouth as well at some stage. Anyway, all I say is all in good fun.
Yeah. I'm already writing Not Forgiven, by the way. Yeah.
But sadly, the event I want to bring before you cannot be covered under the cloak of staff improvement. This tale involves a very pleasant young lad called Nicholas, who joined us from a very rural background, and he was quite unused to the robust nature of our industry. In fairness, by the time Nicholas joined us, we had dialed back our training program when it came, until that is the day of the bumps. On this particular day, it was our estimator, a guy called Steve, who was going to be our victim. The plan was to bundle Steve into the car park and administer the bumps for his birthday. I know different... Do they would do the bumps anymore?
I think you have to think it's too dangerous for people.
Well, because it was a fairly... In fact, because James then says, you might need to explain this for listeners who are unfamiliar with the tradition of the bumps. It's when you take the birthday boy or girl by the arms and legs and bump him or her up into the air and down onto the floor. The number of bumps given equals the age of the person in years plus 1 for luck.
What? Bumping them onto the floor?
Did you never do that at school?
I mean, bumping as in bump on the head.
No. You'd have someone on one arm, someone on your other arm, someone on a leg, someone on the other leg, and they go fling you up into the air, and then just gently you'd bounce on the ground.
Gently bounce on the
Yes.
ground
Often
from
they
head
You never
height.
did that?
No.
Everyone did that.
Really?
What a deprived childhood
Yes,
you had.
clearly.
Bobby did it.
Did it? Yeah.
Really?
It was a
Yeah.
school thing. I mean, obviously, once you get beyond a certain age, people go, I don't want any of that, thanks very much indeed.
funnily
So maybe
enough.
it's not allowed anymore. But
Okay.
anyway, in these different
Yes,
times,
different times,
this is what you did. So come lunchtime, says James, 4 of us, including Nicholas, cornered Steve in the kitchen, and despite his loud protests, we managed to drag him outside. With Nicholas tasked with holding Steve's right leg, we lifted him in the air and proceeded to give the birthday boy the first of his 45 bumps. And while Steve clearly wasn't having the time of his life, I could see that Nicholas was. He clearly felt like he was part of the team now. This is what he wanted more than anything else. He wanted to be accepted and to be part of the team.
Okay.
That was, Father Simon, right up until the 3rd bump, which is when Steve's right leg fell off. This was the one that Nicholas was holding. You see, what Nicholas didn't know was that Steve had an artificial leg, and he'd actually loosened the straps just before being lifted into the air. Steve was, of course, in on the whole affair. I did come clean afterwards to Nicholas, and while he refused to talk to any of us for at least a week, he slowly thought, you're not going to forget that, are you? After a couple of years, he eventually saw the funny side. Nicholas even progressed well within our company, very well prepared for life on site. So obviously I don't seek forgiveness, as there are no mitigating reasons for my acts, just high spirits and poor moral compass. But as I come to my 40th year in the industry, I have a large team of staff working for me, and I care strongly about their welfare, career, progression and happiness. And I like to think, and in some small part, this is due to the lesson that I learnt whilst working with Nicholas. Well, it was just one of those japes, but, I haven't had a line like that in a confession and that is when Steve's right leg fell off. Anyway, I'm just surprised you don't know the bumps. You learn everything. I imagine it died away a while back because obviously in the wrong hands it could be an unpleasant experience. Sister Bobby, what are you saying?
I love this. I used to work in an office like this, and it was just survival every day and great laughs. Great. I mean, the thing is about when you go into those situations, from Nicholas's point of view, you just have to kind of grit your teeth. And they didn't do anything too dangerous or too nasty, did they? This was fabulous because it seems like actually there were no losers. just Nicholas, maybe, just for a fearful moment, thought he had actually broken a human being completely.
There would
by
be that
his
moment
leg.
where it would be just a couple of seconds.
Because the other thing is 45 bumps is way too much for anyone, especially that's why it's dangerous.
Well, it happened on the third.
Yes,
third.
luckily,
so
yeah.
Loosen your leg.
Of course, you don't need to be forgiven, as you say, but I would like more hijinks in the office, please.
Really?
Yeah, forgiven.
Okay.
Let's
forgiven,
not do
James.
that.
No. You could have hijinks in your office, which you share
Yes.
with the newsreader.
Yes, I'm sure they'd love that.
Jason will be up for Jason K. He likes a bit of japery.
High spirits. I'm going to say, I've made my feelings on pranks and japes and scamps pretty clear in the past, and I'm not a massive fan. However, this is very good. To have that open to you of saying, we are going to do this thing where each of us grabs a limb, and it turns out one of us has got a false limb, let's not tell the person who's holding on to the false limb. All of us would have taken that, absolutely. So I am definitely going to forgive, because that is very well worked.
Father Simon, my confession dates back to the late 60s when I played in a band. Although I use the term played loosely, in fact, I was actually the roadie and van driver for the group, who were then called the Jeff Jones Four. Now, I don't think even Brian Matthew has played the Jeff Jones Four as far as I'm aware, but anyway. So they're not particularly well known, but they were big. Well, they're kind of medium, well, they're kind of quite small, really, towards the end of the 60s. While I was not one of the actual four in the Jeff Jones Four, I could play guitar a little and was often drafted in as emergency reserve rhythm guitarist, because on many, many occasions, their bass player, the only married member of the quartet, wasn't allowed out by his wife after their regular marital fallouts.
Lovely.
Because he travelled to the gigs in his own Mini, sometimes we'd get there with 10 minutes notice that he wasn't coming, and we were down to the Jeff Jones 3, which wasn't what the clubs had paid for. I was able to slip in as reserve rather easily because we played lots of rock and roll medleys, and the old 60s music is on the whole rather straightforward to play once you get 3 correct chords. Therefore, this new lineup worked reasonably several times in emergencies, and I began to enjoy being first reserve guitarist. One of my duties in this role was to crack a large bullwhip in front of the stage in the chorus part of The Legend of Xanadu. Now, you may well, just in case, for younger listeners, this is it. This is, of course, Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch. Legend of Xanadu. And Dave D, he's at the front of the stage doing the lead vocals, but he's got a whip in his hand for the chorus bit, which is coming up, okay? Which is obviously Lash LaRue's bit. Here we go. There you go. So that's the song that the Jeff Jones 4 or the Jeff Jones 3 are about to cover, amongst the many songs that they have to do. So Lash says, I became very skilled with the whip. In fact, I learnt it properly and I could do tricks, like flicking a beer can or matchbox back out of your outstretched fingers. I was really quite good, even though I say so myself. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
Can't see.
But this wouldn't be a confession unless something went slightly wrong, and so my story takes us to Huddersfield, in a small but very packed club. Upon arrival, we received a message that our bass player wasn't coming, and I realised that this was now my chance to shine and become one of our Fab Four on a permanent basis. As I mentioned, it's a small club, so by the time we had the full drum kit set up next to the side curtains, there was hardly room for the 3 amplifiers, let alone for us to stand on the 2-foot-high stage. It was like being on a tube train at rush hour. I had no choice but to get right up to the front man, Jeff. I put the bullwhip out to my right on the amp, ready for The Legend of Xanadu, but I could see that this was going to be tricky. I would have to swing the guitar and turn to my left and crack the whip just in front of the stage. Was there room? However, as I'd become quite an expert, Lash LaRue, with my specially tapered leather whip, wasn't worried.
Oh, yes.
This could go in a number of ways.
Yes, I'm sure.
Before we knew it, the curtains parted, and after our starting with a spot of random country and western, it was soon time for The Legend of Xanadu. I could see the concern in Jeff's face about me not being able to manoeuvre my guitar and the whip, but right on cue, I turned, and then we got into this bit. Crack, da-da-da-da, crack, da-da-da-da, crack. Well, it all went perfectly. The whip had cracked out loudly, high in the air both times, well above the audience's heads, like a thunderclap, and they absolutely loved it. Jeff visibly relaxed, and smiling across, he gave me his well done look. I had also managed to do the cracks while hardly missing out a guitar strum in the chorus. Expert stuff. Supremely pleased with myself is how we entered the rest of the song. As we got to the second chorus, I slid my hand down for the whip handle again, getting ready to pull my guitar hard left, and with one hand turn, crack the whip again with my right hand. But this time, oh dear, I let go of the whip just as an old lady called Ethel stood up to go to the toilet. Oh, no. The crack was like a thunderclap, but this time the whip had gone barely an inch above Ethel's head, and the noise of the whip was closely followed by a shrill scream. That's me coughing, not the scream. As the whip end flew back to me on stage, I could see the lash tassel was wrapped around something. It looked like a rabbit on the end of the whip. Shocked, I momentarily lost control, and it flew backwards over my right shoulder, landing squarely on the snare drum. The drummer screamed out in shock, and he hurriedly jumped backwards. His stool's foot slipped off the side of the stage and tilted him with it. Grabbing his drum kit for support didn't work, because as he fell off the stage through the side curtain, the whole drum kit that he was desperately clutching onto simply followed through after him. If I had to describe the sound his fall made onto the hardwood floor, I'd say it was like a track from Tubular Bells. Excuse me. So this is all going very well.
Yeah.
Not very pleasing reference for Mike Oldfield there. Following a period of stunned silence, we could see Ethel was luckily unhurt, just severely shocked and missing her wig. However, as
wig?
Well, what did you think it was?
We thought it might be something on her head. I didn't know it was
on
a
her head.
wig. Oh, it's obviously yes. We now worked that out.
Yeah.
And apparently it's a wig. Last I heard, it was something that looked like a rabbit, but obviously that's a wig.
Yes. I can go slower if you like. So Ethel stood up.
Yes. No, I got that.
And then the whip.
Yes, the whip came back, yeah, with a rabbit on.
Yeah.
Well, thing that looked like a rabbit. Wasn't
However,
a rabbit.
as I sheepishly went over to apologise and hand her hairpiece back, she fixed me with a menacing glare and said, "Just you wait till my two lads come and get their hands on you lots." Because even though it was Huddersfield,
yes, she was Eastie.
she travelled up from West Ham. As I backed away from Ethel, a committee member confirmed that Ethel's family were definitely not to be messed with, and we didn't need to be told twice. We beat a speedy retreat out of Huddersfield, arguing as we went, and inevitably Lash LaRue got all the blame. The Jeff Jones Four disbanded not long after the incident. Well, at least that's what I was told at the time. I subsequently discovered they changed their name, got a new bass guitarist and a new roadie, and went to Hamburg, although I don't think he's implying that...
We all got it.
So, Father Simon, I would like to ask forgiveness first and foremost from Ethel for displaying her balding head to friends and colleagues. I also seek forgiveness from the drummer, who probably has a rat aversion even now and looks around every time one comes into a drum solo. And finally to Dave D, Dozy Beaky, Mick and Titch for the loss of royalties for performing rights to Legend of Xanadu, which you don't spell Lashley with a Z, by the way, it's with an X. I doubt it was ever played at that club ever again. I never played it again either, and wince now even 50 years later when the chorus part comes on the radio with a little bit... Oh, yes. Get that right. Look out, Ethel! It's a wig, Matt. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, right, let's see what Sister Bobby makes. Hang on, I've got to change the music here for you, Sister Bobby. What do you make of that one, then?
Well, first of all, I mean, it is funny. It is a very funny story. Lash LaRue, bass playing, whip cracking, understudy. I mean, you do well to stand in at those moments and kind of save. You're used to saving the day, not basically ruining everything. So I suppose it must have been an uncomfortable situation. But the thing is, your need to perform got in the way of your level-headedness and your thinking. And it's, you're actually really lucky she had a wig on, because it could have actually been worse. Because at least it took up... Because it could have been, couldn't it? It could have been so much worse. Yes, because the energy was taken up with the wig flying off. I mean, you exposed a poor, lovely lady. Luckily, she was resilient
You
enough.
don't know she was lovely?
She
might have been an old bat.
Actually, see, the thing is, I love the story, but Lash LaRue, health and safety, every time
She could
you're
have been connected to
you're not forgiven.
a crime family.
I'm sure she was lovely.
What do you say, Brother Matt?
Well, this is another classic, different times, clearly. What I can't understand is the people who run this club, who say we've got a very, very small venue, tightly packed, there'll barely be enough room for the band and the amps, and then one of them says, oh, and my bullwhip as well, and the venue, obviously, you can bring out your bullwhip, that's fine. No one at any point goes, really? You don't need the bullwhip? We don't actually think you're making the sound of the whip when you're on the stage, so what on earth was the venue thing? It's all down to the venue. That's what I'm going to say.
So it's this club in Huddersfield.
Yes,
fault.
I'm going to say. I mean, there's a long and storied history of roadies stepping in when one of the band goes missing. So I don't think that there's anything that Lash has to be forgiven for. It's entirely down to the venue.
All right.
Simon and team, I'm seeking your team's forgiveness and absolution for something I did when I was working in a large hotel in a seaside resort in the northeast. I got the very part-time job at the hotel because my mum was a cleaner there in the hotel kitchen and actually started well. I was given different jobs to do, such as working in the pot room, literally climbing inside huge pots to clean them, up to my elbows in soap suds, greasy water, and not being really successful in scraping old bits of food off the pots. So there I was working in the hotel kitchen and not fully understanding that I was preparing food for others to eat. What were these wondrous things called salmon mousse and crêpe Suzette? What's one of those? And a quiche, never heard of those. And a prawn cocktail, who knew what they were? Well, in the 70s, it was all the rage. I progressed with almost stellar and ramjet speed from topping and tailing strawberries, preparing in my mind the world's best ox tongue and constructing beautiful prawn cocktails, to the penultimate accolade of my 7-star chef filleting a salmon. You ever done that, Nigel?
I haven't, but that takes some art.
Well, in keeping with my limited and relatively sheltered childhood, I had never seen a salmon before, live or tinned. But because my newfound confidence must have shown clearly through the fug of the kitchen, the sous chef asked me to fillet the salmon, and his instructions were very clear. We've smartened these up a bit. Cut its head off, stick the knife up its bottom, and then cut its belly open, take out the guts and cut out the fillets. Sorry, Bobby, by the way. It goes without saying that the resulting salmon carcass was inedible and completely wasted, or at least I thought it was wasted. After a few exclamations and expletives, and after the sous chef had calmed down, he then threw the remains of the salmon into the gravy pot. The gravy pot, indeed. The huge gravy pot which stood in the middle of the kitchen and simmered and bubbled 24 hours a day, and I swear was the subconscious reason why I've been a vegetarian for 30 years. All food scraps, including fish heads, carcasses, you name it, it was thrown into the gravy pot. Anyway, our CAF being a famous and popular hotel throughout the summer, we often entertained visits by coachloads of pensioners who were out for a day trip to the seaside. It's to 300 of these pensioners that I'm now apologising for what happened next. That's a lot of people to apologise for.
Yeah, this is ominous.
It's a hot, busy weekend lunchtime. Now, it's popular, our place, with coach trips, that the hotel had a second kitchen, so open specifically to cater for the 300 or so pensioners when they turned up. The standard fare was, of course, fish, chips and peas. No variation, just fish, chips and peas, and a cup of tea, because this was the 70s. I see fish, chips and peas and a cup of tea. It's pretty good. Any decade you might like to choose. So on this particular day, which has haunted me for 30 years, we were visited by the huge party of pensioners out for the annual day trip to the seaside. The sous chef asked me to help him open the second kitchen to prepare the fish, chips and peas and cup of tea. The second kitchen, like the main kitchen, was full of large stainless steel pots, machinery, and of particular note to this confession, 2 huge fat fryers, one for the fish and one for the chips. To prepare the fat fryers for the fish and chips, we had to fill them with fat, which in those days came in huge slabs of lard wrapped in plastic. These slabs were about 18 inches by 6 inches by 4 inches, quite difficult to manhandle, especially when slippery with the lard. It took up to half a dozen slabs of lard to fill each fryer. We managed to fill the Fisher fryer, but by the time we tried to finish the filling of the chip fryer, both me and the sous chef were caked in extremely slippery lard. There's a lot of lard in this confession.
There is, and it's messy.
By this time, the chip fryer was half full of very hot lard, and the first lot of chips were cooking away splendidly. The sous chef asked me to put another slab of lard in the chip fryer, and here is the crux of my confession. I was hot, covered up to my elbows in slippery lard, and importantly full of my newfound confidence as a world-renowned chef, famous as a strawberry topper tailor, salmon decimator, lettuce washer, prawn cocktail creator and ox-tongue carver. Unfortunately, this confidence was of course misplaced. My greasy fingers could not hold the slab of lard, and I accidentally tipped the slab into the chip fryer. Nothing wrong with that, I hear you say, apart from the fact that it was still wrapped in plastic. Now, frantically, I tried to scoop out the rapidly melting plastic, but with it being the second kitchen, I didn't know where all the implements were. I couldn't scream for help to show the world that I was truly useless in the kitchen. I managed to get little bits of plastic out of the fryer, but mostly it melted into oblivion and got lost in amongst the chips. that were furiously frying away. The chips soon took on a lovely sheen as they cooked away. When it came to plate up the fish, chips and peas for the 300 pensioners, I was terrified over what would come out of the chip fryer. But to my astonishment, everything looked as it should, apart from the fact that the chips were unbelievably shiny. But then they always do in those photographs that you see. All the food is, and now I'm beginning to reason.
Oh yeah, but you wouldn't
why?
Eat that food
Covered in plastic
because it's been doctored and sprayed and things are covered in plastic.
Again, after serving, I hid where I could in the kitchen for fear that the complaints and the undoubted sacking that would follow. No doubt my man would get the sack as well, as I would be grounded forever. Unbelievably, there were no complaints from any of the pensioners, nor my sous chef. As I reflect on this gastronomic blunder, it just reinforces everything that I read about the quality of the food we experienced in the 70s. I'm just hoping as a result of my slippery fingers, over 30 years ago, 300 pensioners didn't suffer any side effects of eating the shiniest chips ever produced at the seaside. From Derek the Geordie. And of course, the reason they were shiny is that they were covered in plastic. Well, who would have thought? Well, I suppose there are no complaints. So, is it a harmless confession? By the look of Bobby's face, by the way, it's not a harmless confession. What are you saying?
Well, I know there were different times, but I don't think plastic in your chips is really good enough. And I think actually, given the fact the consequences could have been really, really awful, even for the 70s, I think you're not forgiven. You should have fessed up. I understand your fear, Derek, but better be told off and emptied the fat fryer. They'd have managed. They'd have told those people, just say, look, just give us 20 minutes to clean that fat out and start again. Just one point. So basically, Derek, you're unforgiven.
If a pensioner needs his chips, pensioner gets his
you're
chips.
unforgiven. But
Can't
I have
wait.
one tiny point. Your sous chef put the fish carcass in the stock pot, not the gravy. I think the stock pot, isn't it? Not the gravy pot.
So
but you don't think you put the fish carcass in the stock pot? Because I think you have a separate stock for fish, don't you?
Well,
is that right, Nigel?
Theoretically,
I
you
think in
should
this
do,
place
but-
they just had a gravy pot, everything in there.
I mean,
What
he
are we
would
going
go
to do with this
24
chap in
hours
there?
a day. And I mean, he might be very diminutive, Mike Derek, but also the fact that he clambered in cyberstock pot to give you an idea. That's why kitchens was so hot, because these things are going all the time, different times.
Imagine if
definitely.
we were doing confessions in the 70s. That would be. We would have amazing
we would get
stories.
away with so much more.
But we now have
Oh, yes.
Yes, novice. Go on.
70-year-olds in the 70s. And as far as Derek's aware, no one was taken ill or anything. But he might not have known that.
He might not know,
That's the
that's
point,
right.
because there were 300 of them. The fact that he could actually carve an ox tongue is very impressive, because that takes some doing. They're huge things as well. And in Yorkshire, people like their chips traditionally cooked in lard. So that's hence all these great big slabs. It sounded like a scene from A Cook, the Thief's Wife and His Lover. And her lover even. And but it was different times, and Derek, you just for that moment you didn't say anything, you went with it, so I'm going to forgive you, kid.
Salt, vinegar, a little bit of plastic. Excellent. What do you say there, Matt?
I'm going to say, you've got that much lard in your chips. Maybe a bit of plastic isn't the biggest of your problems. I think everyone was fine. I mean, we don't know, but you know what? I'm going to guess everyone was fine. So a victimless crime. So I am going to say definitely forgiven.
What you're saying essentially is, if you ordered chips in the 70s, it serves you right.
It serves you right. You knew what was
70s
coming. Can I
70s
have
chips, please?
extra lard with my chips?
So, do you forgive Derek the Geordie? Is the people's verdict, please, on the text 88291. Thanks. Well, they were this week's confessions, a fine array. Send in your own dodgy secret, please, perhaps inspired by one of those. Confessions at bbc.co.uk. More in a week. And don't forget, you can listen to all our shows from the last 30 days on the iPlayer. In case you find yourself with nothing to do, just pop on one of our programmes. Last week, we had Barry Cryer in on Monday talking about his old friend Tommy Cooper. On Tuesday, with some big songs from Yes, Blancmange, Robert Plant and Bon Jovi. We got all frazzled on Wednesday. This is Ruby Wax talking about her new book, The Mindfulness Guide for the Frazzled. And Foodie Thursday, Nigel was making all the Scots women and Scotsmen in the country very happy with her Burns Night sausage bake. That's what we were doing. And you can go and listen to those because they're all fine and worth treasuring. And if you've made it this far, by the way, and you just want to prove that you are still listening, you can always tweet me with the key phrase, Windsor not Cartland. This is due to a mistake that I made and made myself sound rather stupid. Anyway, last week you had to tweet waterproof undertrousers, which was highly entertaining for all of us. Gwyneth, Dave, Emma, Phil, Swanee, Guy and loads more. Thanks very much. This week, it's Windsor not Cartland. Thank you. See you next week.